Hey guys, and welcome back to Taking Chances. Edition number 10. This came so quick. I've got a really special guest this week. Someone that I've actually had the pleasure, I think we've worked together for a few months. We had some overlap there, but I've got Kayla Dillon coming in live from, I'm sorry, not Denver, Colorado. That's where I'm from. I like to get so excited to get back home. From Fort Collins, a senior marketing executive that's touched almost every hospitality endeavor that's out there right now, I think. So what's going on, Kayla? How you been?
I am good. I am good. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, I know it's a pleasure, and we've been talking quite a bit over the last few weeks as Kayla and I reconnected. And boy, have we found some synergies really in marketing and kind of brand growth. That Kayla and I, we had the pleasure of working in the same entity. Well, I'll just say it right now because I'll probably mess up down the road. So we worked together in BLRO operations, and I think we both held that concept near and dear. But what's fascinating to me, Kayla, and really getting to know you, because I think we knew each other a little bit in the concept, but I think I was on my way out. What I found fascinating in just getting to catch back up with you is how similar that we were, how that culture found us, and how similar, even though we didn't overlap at all. But coming out of that, I feel like you and I could have worked hand in hand for the last 15 years, like I've known you. So, just pretty interesting, man.
Yeah,
So,
it was a really special place, and I will always say is probably my most impactful job. I when I started at Bar Louie, the people, right? It was the culture, it was the people, and it was exactly what resonates with why you get into hospitality, right? Like the taking care of people and the connections that I made working at Bar Louie, I still have those connections today, right? And it was really impactful.
well, it's cool to see how we've all, we call it kind of like the 13th grade of Bar Louie, how we've all stayed in touch. Or, I see some of us, Chris Allen, Wincy, and, it's just some of that original crew. And for the folks that know me and some have followed the story, so I joined up with Bar Louie when there was 35 units, I believe, and stayed with them until there was about 150. Did about 59 new store openings with Bar Louie, and got a chance to see the entire United States. Kayla and I felt just like you. I tried to find another cool job as Bar Louie, and we'll kind of get into some of those details. And I just never really found it. That's how I got out my own. But super thankful for all the things they taught me. I looked at Bar Louie as kind of my education's in psychology, right? So I get out in
Yeah.
operations, and I really felt like that was my 13th grade of college that really paid me to kind of learn operations, really teach me how to do some things. Taught me how to not do some things too I didn't want to, but definitely learned more of what I wanted to do from Bar Louie or not. And so, hey, I know we've been powwowing all week. And I just, as we're doing some of these endeavors, and I know that you've touched, from my perspective, you've some really fascinating brands post Bar Louie, but let's just hop right into kind of the first subject we want to talk about. So talk to me about failure. I think this is a subject that hits a lot of folks near and dear today. And I think a lot of people look about it the wrong way. And I know in our conversations, you really embrace failure, not only with yourself, but with your teams. But talk to me about that a little bit. Cause what does that mean to the layman? How do we embrace failure and make that a success?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, from my perspective, I was a perfectionist, and in a lot of ways I still kind of am, right? And a people pleaser. And so failure was really, really hard for me. I look back at, my younger years, and I wish I would have had the point of view and the appreciation for failure that I do today. So, I think about, I didn't get into the college that I wanted to get into, and it devastated me. I mean, devastated me. And if I hadn't, if I'd gotten into that school, I wouldn't have gone to A&M. I wouldn't have met the people I met there, and my trajectory of my life would have been completely different. And it would have gotten me to Dallas, and I wouldn't have met my husband, and wouldn't have probably worked at Bar Louie. And so, what was devastating and seemed like a failure at that time really put me on the path that I'm on today. And so looking at, all these times in my life where whether it was a marketing endeavor or it was, something in my personal life that on the outside looking in appeared to be failure, I now look at that as opportunity. I now look at that as like, this happened for a reason. What can I learn from this? Where can this now take me? What's the stepping stone that it can do? But a lot of times, if I look back in my life and in my career, it was the moments of failure that got me to greatness. It's the moments of failure that really helped me understand who I am and what I really want out of life. And so as a parent, as a leader, that's really what I lean into, embracing failure for growth.
So I think I grasp this. I want to lay into that last thing you said a little bit. Talk to me a little bit about like how did it expose it for you? So like kind of sitting with that emotion a little bit and then building yourself back up to push out. Because I mean, I certainly resonate with those tones, but I'm just curious of. I think a lot of folks, you and I sitting here, I can say going through failures and learning the best practice, that's kind of how I build in the foundation for myself, right? I kind of had to build in the confidence to be wrong and then to learn from those opportunities. Is that similar to what you're saying too, though? Is that kind of the takeaway there?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like working out or learning a new skill. It takes time and it takes practice. And I think that's the part that's uncomfortable, is being comfortable in failure, being comfortable in, you know what, this could not go well. This could be a mistake. And being, but to your point, confident and comfortable in that unknown, that is the hardest thing, I think, to get to do in this embracing of failure. But it's important because once you do and you realize it's not, you take away that fear of failure and you make it a catalyst for growth and these taking risks, these taking chances, even if they don't hit the mark, that's okay because it's moving you forward. Once you shift your mindset to that, I mean, it's so powerful. But getting there is hard.
It is, and I think getting there is part of the journey, though, right? And I think, especially in our culture today, that we are just. I was a perfectionist, and it's something that I work on a lot with my teams. And I think most high performers want to be a perfectionist. Usually, what I'm coaching on too, and maybe you'll see this, and we'll get into the teams thing, is a lot of people don't realize there is no such thing as perfection. As a team, you can approach it. But as an individual, you'll never get there. And I mean, if you think you are, I don't think you're busy enough. I think you have to level up some of your endeavors, So what I can say is usually when it came in and when I had to embrace failures, certain things we get comfortable with. But then if I want to reach that next rung, whether that's, you're an entrepreneur or going to the gym, you're, max set, whatever it might be, usually you have to re-embrace with that kind of foundation that you built, hopefully some confidence there, to have the foundation to reach to the next ring. And that's kind of what I'm hearing you saying too. And I also would assume, being a senior executive in marketing, you probably have a ton of ideas. And I know that there's A/B testing, but I'm sure a lot of ideas do not go as planned. And that's how the advertisements become better. Is that correct?
Yeah. And, again, it's test and learn, right? It's test to learn. And it's easy. Again, it's easy to say. And then, growing within, when we'll just use the Bar Louie example, when I started out as a field marketing manager, when you're kind of lower end of the totem pole, you almost feel more empowered to do that test and learn, especially if you have a good leader. The risk of, losing your job or like the decisions on me is much lower when you're, lower in the organization. But as you get higher into the organization, the risk becomes much higher because you're the one making the decision. So that is definitely something that was a challenge for me in growing my confidence to say, you know what, I'm going to do this testing and knowing that it could fail, right? It's something in the leveling up as a leader that I didn't truly appreciate the need for it until I was in it, and didn't appreciate the leaders I had above me that enabled me as a field marketing manager to take those risks and those chances and have that support of, hey, it's okay if it doesn't go the way that you thought it was going to go. If you don't get the ROI, it's how you get better.
Yeah. How do you get better from it? What did you learn from that? And it's funny when you say this too, because man, did I get so much confidence out of like Matthew Lucidello in operations and Bar Louie as well, into where, I never really thought about it, reverse engineering it until right now when you said it, but I had a lot of confidence as a GM and then a first DO promote. So when I was first promoted to a director of operations, I took over an underperforming market. Mr. Coe had a great idea in the first 3 months. It paid off, but I fired every general manager in my market, and I promoted 4 bartenders to general managers. So I had, Smokey Hughes flew down. I think Neitzel called me. Everyone was like, Coe, what are you on? But to rewind to that date, like Kayla, they allowed me to make those decisions.
With fair?
Stephanie Miller was GM of the year that year. I became director of the year. But like, I just thought of this and I got a little bit of chills when you said that. They all flew down and tried to talk me out of it. But like, let's just talk about a different leader. They didn't beat up on me. They said, Coe, if this fails, you're going to get fired straight up, you know, but they let me make my decision. And like, who knows? Like, even when you said that, I believe that might have been a very critical moment in my life I didn't think about, to where I built the confidence. That was the first time I started winning awards for a corporation. And then, 5 years later, I opened my own business. But as you said that, what a profound thing that I think we just both kind of brought to light. Talk to me a little bit about how you've done this for your teams now, though. So I know you had some good tutelage around you, but I know you've moved on from now. So how have you helped some of your younger now field marketing, managers maybe kind of get through some of the same stuff and provide some of that tutelage that you have?
I use that same type of perspective and grace, right?
I love that.
I've led very diverse teams, diverse not only in experience, but definitely diverse in age and in all walks. And so, it's one of the things that as a leader you have to learn is how to adjust your leadership style for your teams. And
my God, yeah.
while that is in and of itself a challenge, one of the things that I was always very, very focused on is letting my teams know that I had their back no matter what. And a lot of times it was enabling them to do the things that I knew, or I had the experience to know it was probably not going to be successful the first run. But I wanted to empower them to make those decisions, to learn on their own. Because even as a mom, right, sometimes your kid has to fall down and scrape its knee to know that you shouldn't be running down the street, right? I could tell them all day long, but sometimes you have to make the mistake yourself. You have to fail yourself in order for you to truly learn. And so a lot of my team, as I leveled up in the organization, so in Bar Louie, as an example, I went from, 2 and 3 people down to 1 person, then, brought it back up to 3 people and multiple 8, lots of transitions, and in the beginning, it was a lot of, I was leading, but I was also doing, right? And it was just because it was the necessity of the time. It was COVID, all of the things. But as the team started to grow, it became important to me to start to let go of some of the things that I was doing so that it would help my team grow. Like, to me, the best thing that I can do as a leader is to get my team to a place where I'm not needed and they've outgrown my leadership. They've outgrown the role. And what I learned is that for them to do that, they had to be able to feel confident to take those risks and to make those mistakes. And when mistakes would happen, because of course they would, and again, as a mom, you can tell them 100 times and they're still not going to listen and things are going to happen. When the mistakes would happen, I would have a call, with the individual, and we would just talk through it. And I'd say, so just tell me what happened. You're not in trouble. I'm not writing you up. This is not going to affect your performance review. But what'd you learn? And how are we going to, make sure this doesn't happen again? Like, what was missing in the process? What was going on in your personal life? Because a lot of times it's not that they're not good. People are human. You make mistakes, and sometimes there's distractions and things even outside of work that can affect your job. And so it's having empathy. It's being transparent. I make mistakes as a leader, and it's being transparent to your team of like, I made a mistake, and building that trust and that foundation is so vital for having an effective team.
I agree. And it's definitely a two-way street there. I mean, I think the honest communication provides almost like a safety net to where, it's like, hey, if I make a mistake, we're going to talk about how to make it better. But as long as I'm learning something, we're going to move forward. And I love what you're saying there too, because so many leaders, especially in today, even in the remote world, which is super weird to me, this like micromanagement doesn't work. It never has worked. It's not good for the person that's micromanaging. And I think, and this will kind of lead us into the next topic we're going to talk about, but as long as you have the right team, I am a firm believer that everybody wants to be successful. I think that even with our clients, even with some of my executive coaching clients, some of our clients internationally that we work with, a lot of times what I really feel like we're doing on a strategy level is helping people get out of their own way. And I mean, this is whether it's a board of directors, whether it's the executive, whether it's the owner, whether it's an entrepreneur that's starting up. I find this so consistently in the endeavors of what I touch. And I think that's like the big give back that I try to give to everyone is, we haven't talked much about this, Kayla, but me getting out of my comfort zone was first my physical fitness, then climbing, and then skydiving, being deathly afraid of heights, and then doing things that just scared the living daylights out of me. But after that, I don't want to say everything seems easy. There's challenges, but I think how I perceive those challenges is completely different, And I think it's like, okay, I've been here, done that. We're going to get through this, just kind of like to your confidence point and embracing failure. But if you don't have that story in your head, it's so hard for the younger people to kind of tell through. And I think this leads right into the next subject. So talk to me about the importance of hiring for attitude over aptitude, because I don't think a lot of people do that either. But I think this kind of echoes to what you're talking about.
My best team was a team of, I will lovingly call them my marketing misfits. There were three individuals who had zero marketing experience, zero, zilch, none. And I took, one was IT, one was operations, and the third individual, was more in kind of like a PR type role.
Just hybrid. Yeah.
Just a hybrid of all kind, was a hairstylist, just kind of hodgepodge career.
Figuring life out, we call that.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. She, was like, going to school to be a doctorate, like, all these different things. But all three of these individuals were willing to learn, wanted to learn. They had the attitude of, I want to be my best self. I want to grow. I want to be developed. I want to learn something new. As a leader, that's all I could ever ask for, right? Because you can work with that. I've had direct reports who could not take feedback, no matter how hard I tried to shift and be positive and try all the different tools and tactics of how do you deliver feedback, to be the most impactful, and just could not take the feedback. And ultimately, those individuals didn't end up staying on my team. And a lot of that was, again, because while they may have been talented in their job, they were toxic to the culture and the productivity of the team. Because when you have one person on the team, again, skill set was there, but could not take feedback, that affects the whole team, that the whole organization. So yeah, I mean, 100%, my best team were not marketers at all. They were people who had an attitude of willingness and truly wanted to learn and embraced feedback, right? And were willing to work hard for me because I was willing to work hard for them. And so there was a ton of good synergy there, and we did a lot of really great work. And again, it was mostly because not their skill set, but because they were wanting and willing to learn.
But it also sounds like you did a very good job of connecting the A to B for them. And I mean, of like, hey, you're here to do this, you're going to learn this. And then you made sure that all those things were not only in alignment within that team, but the individuals with each other and then with yourself. So like you kind of set the groundwork for, hey, fostering education is going to be fostered here. You're going to make mistakes. We're going to keep going. You're going to bring those mistakes to me. We're going to talk about them. We're going to get better together. But they came in knowing they knew very little, to where on the other end, maybe you have some top performers. And a lot of times I find some top performers, they are top performers, but they think they know quite a bit more than they actually do. And if they can't fit into a team, it's like you definitely have to embrace humility. And this was, I can tell this story for myself too. One of the challenging times I had with that was kind of going to Chewy's Tex-Mex for the first time as a consultant. And really, man, was that culture so different from Bar Louie? Not bad, just different, but the cadence was different. And I'd say, Kayla, I probably fell into a little bit of that for the first 6 months of like, not embracing it enough, and I think that there's just times where things aren't always a good fit there. So how do you
now you're making me miss Chewy's.
I know. I know. I was thinking about some queso right when I said there.
Yum. Okay, sorry, go on.
No, don't worry. I'm going to get some food
Shameless
after
plug
this.
for Chewy's, man. Come up to Fort Collins.
There you go, and get some. I know, right? We'll try to get them further north. Let me ask you one question around there, though, because I don't, I like to challenge any of our executives that we work with about how they do this. How does Kayla Dillon hire for attitude, right? Because I mean, that's a little bit. So talk to me about that. And I know it's the attitude and the culture that's important to you, but like that's not on a CV. It can be an interview process, but like, how do you look for that from your perspective?
That's an excellent question. Honestly, how I interview is how we're talking right now. Like it's to me, it's very conversational. It's at the end of the day, I want to know, can I, when you're working with someone, you're going to be spending a lot of time with that person. Do I like this person? Can I have a conversation with this person? I don't like a lot of the tell me about a time when blah, blah, blah. I'll use those to get a barometer, but a lot of times they're canned responses. And so what I try to do is throughout conversation, find ways to have myself share something that may have been a challenge and open up the organic way for the person I'm interviewing to potentially share an experience they've had, right? So again, it's much more conversational versus, hey, tell me about a time that you had a difficult conversation with a coworker and how you handled that conversation. I mean, again, nothing against those questions. I think those questions are still very, very valid, and there's a reason that most people use them. But for me, it's more about that gut feeling of like, can we just can you jive with the person? Because again, you can look at a resume, you can tell me about a time, in the process, but that's skills and those are very specific. But looking at it's very but looking at an individual and saying like, can we get along, right? Like, are you a type of personality that I can grow and develop, that I can work with, right? And that's really at the end of the day what I hire for.
Well, I love it. And I kind of put you on the spot with this question, but at the same time, it's so close to how we coach not only our recruiters, but also our clients. So, and again, a lot of our clients are using DISC assessments or any kind of assessments. We love those, but it's like, if you can turn the interview into a conversation, and again, right, like you talked about, build that safety net, not to like fictitiously make people feel safe when they're not, but to say, hey, let's have an honest conversation. Like when we talk to our candidates and we talk to our clients, this is the last thing we leave them with. Hey, I want you to go talk to whatever the hiring manager's name is. I just want you to go and have an open and honest conversation. Don't worry about salary. Like, where the parameters are. Just see if this is a person that you could see yourself working with day in and day out. And if it is, everything else can be worked out, but just have it authentic. And what I find is when people interview that way and candidates interview that way, they both just leave those endeavors knowing more where they each stand, and they make a better decision. Because I'll say this: I don't like the scripted things. I think it's archaic psychology that's just long lost. We start off. I joke I don't do many interviews these days, but when I do have a couple candidates, the first thing I say is, "Hey, I'm not going to ask you what kind of animal you would be if you could pick an animal, because that's fucking stupid." Right. And I say, but that statement in itself, and I swear I
would be a unicorn, just for the record.
Yeah, I know. I would be a Sphinx, I think, but I just throw that out there. But to the same, to your point, when I say that, whether male or female, we both have a belly laugh, and then the conversation actually starts. I'm like, look, I just want to get a chance to know you. At the end of the day, there's a ton of opportunities out there. There's a ton of opportunities for you. I want to try to find the best one for you, and my team wants to. So the only way we can do this is if we're honest with each other. Because if I'm bullshitting you and you're bullshitting me, then just let's not waste each other's time, because you can do this on your own kind of deal. So
well, even for the interviewee, right? I mean, I want them to know my authentic self and my leadership style, because it may not be a good fit. I mean, there are some people, I don't know very many of them, but I'm sure they're out there, that do like having that micromanager type. Like, they need that, right? They need that follow-up, and that's not my style, right? So so they're there. And so having, there's some people who don't like my personality, right? They don't like that I'm sunshine and bubbles and like this is who I am, right? And some people, it doesn't resonate with them. And again, that's okay, right? So be me, you be you. If it's not a good fit on either side, great, and that's where and that's how I interview and how, I really find good fits, not just for someone working for me, but also me working with, whether it's a client or a company, like, do we jive? If
Yeah.
we do, great. If not, then maybe it's not a good fit. I've turned down jobs because you know what? I could do the job. The money was great. There was no red flags on any of the things, but the person I'd be reporting into, we just didn't jive, and I just know that even though that would have been a great opportunity, I would not have been happy and I wouldn't be my best self, right? And it's nothing against that, and nothing against that leader. It's just not the right leader for me. And so I think it's important to have that own internal knowledge as well.
It's like the boundaries conversation. I love where this conversation is going too, because I think too often today, like, you don't have to love everybody, folks. Like, and everybody doesn't have to love you, and that's okay. And on the other end of that, you can also find people you don't really see eye to eye with. And you don't have to hate them. I love how you said that. Like, it's okay. Your management style is different than the way I want to be managed. Doesn't make you right or me wrong. It just means that this isn't the best spot, and I could come in and do this, and the revenue would be good if I focus on that. But you wouldn't be the best version of yourself, and that growth would kind of be hindered, I would argue. So I just
Agreed.
love these responses there, and I think there's so many good takeaways for both the hiring managers, the clients, and also the candidates that are out there. So Kayla, we've talked a lot about, I mean, God, I know that you've touched so many national brands on national accounts, and we didn't really dive into it too much in this call, but anyone can check out your socials and kind of see your background. The last thing I want to talk about though is a little bit, which I think is coming back into a big scale outside of hospitality as well. I know it's always been big, but talk to me about the importance of localizing branding and marketing, I guess specifically for hospitality, but then what are some of the channels you're using to utilize that?
Ooh, oh my gosh. How much time do we have? How much
As
time
much time as we need. As much time as we need. As much time as we need.
Wow. So look, local store marketing, that really is where I started my marketing journey. So my very, very first job in marketing was at Hard Rock Cafe, and I was the sales and marketing coordinator there. They had just reopened in Victory Park. If you're in the Dallas area, you know where that is. And when we launched, we had a great, first few weeks of sales, as you know, new store openings, and then of course everything dies, right? And so we started to come up with, like, my job was, how do I drive more traffic, more localized traffic, not from like the national campaigns, but localized. And so I created a street team. I created a, service industry. I did market research. I did, I created a concierge program. I joined the West End Association. So I started to do all these things, right? And that's really what got me into local store marketing, was understanding the power of connecting with your community, knowing what's around you in that 5-mile radius, right? What are the different businesses? What are the different, again, for hospitality, service industry, what organizations, what are, the National Cheerleader Association would come into Dallas, in July. And so figuring out, how do I connect with the convention center and drive traffic to Hard Rock, so just understanding that there was this wide network of support that you had to go out and get. Now, this was a long time ago. I was one of...
What year were you starting this in? Not to put you on the...
Oh my
on the calendar.
God, you're making me old. 2009. So if you're doing math, long time ago. But like, as an example, Facebook, we were just starting. I was one of the first people who said, like, we should create a local, I know, and I should slap myself now, but a local Hard Rock Cafe Dallas business page. And we did, right? And so then, and it took off, right? So very different world back then. Fast forward to Bar Louie and looking at, starting as a field marketing manager. And again, I was very, very fortunate to be able to be at Bar Louie in the time that I was, because there was like almost 150 units. When I started, I was over 33 and then ended up being over all of them, became the director of local store marketing and really got to help build out those toolkits, right? So really, really looking at your community, your business. And again, a lot of it back then was still very what I would call grassroots, right? It was very flyers and app cards and going to community events and like shaking hands and kissing babies, right? Having martini parties where you're inviting businesses over to come and enjoy a happy hour or the chambers. It was still a lot of the same tactics back then. When COVID happened, everything shifted because it
Shifted
had
virtual.
to shift.
Yeah.
It's a virtual. Now we have local Facebook pages, so we had some, local listing pages. So there was local digital that we had, but we weren't leveraging it. And when COVID happened, we had to. And Bar Louie, as you know, was very unique. It's why I loved the brand so much, which was why it was so hard to market it from a national perspective, is because each bar was different. Each bar was unique. And it was the blessing and the curse of that company of trying to market it, because it was hard to communicate nationally when literally every single one had its own personality. And that's how Bar Louie became such a great concept, right? And that's why it grew the way it did, was through truly connecting with the community, being a place for the community to gather and staying engaged with it, both from a grassroots, we're your neighborhood bar to, fast forward to 2021, 2020, doing that on a digital scale and really leveraging local influencers and leveraging mom groups and paint with a twist and things that were within their community that would help drive traffic and show that we were a part of it.
Okay, so I like that. So you've taken the local store marketing approach, which was very much just person to person, I'd say, or B2C, some B2C, but now you've kind of approached that with a local store advertisement still. But so you're leveraging the local partners, you're leveraging the local businesses, probably Facebook pages, fan pages, commerce and stuff like that. That's pretty profound. Kayla, what are some things? So I want to back up. So I know what local store marketing is, but I guess for some of the guests that are out there that maybe they want to get this going, they don't know what is, so I think it's self-defined. What is the radius in your perspective though? And maybe it's different for each unit and each concept, but like when you say local, could that be as much as 15 miles, 25 miles? Is that too far?
I think
or is it not defined?
Yeah, I think it varies. I think it varies by concept and by market, but I would say you really want to look in that like 4 to 5 mile radius from your location. I think that's a pretty good indication of your like true local market. Now, like for example, there's companies out there, and this was fascinating. I think it's called Placer. I don't remember, but basically you can go in, you can see drive radius. It was really interesting to see pre-COVID, looking at day parts, like what was the traffic times and like how far people would drive to go to a Bar Louie. And then after COVID and seeing the shifts there, right? So it was impactful because there were some locations that truly it was like, okay, people are, within that 4 to 5 mile radius that is truly your area, right? Your area for marketing. But then there were some that it was more like 10, 15 minutes, right? So like a Park Lane versus an Allen. And so it was interesting. And again, this is why it is so vital if you are a restaurant operator, if you are a marketer of multi-unit locations, to understand your unit's geography, your demographics, what is in that area. Because like I said, I say recommend 4 to 5 miles, but I mean,
Maybe
it truly may be, it may be longer or larger than that.
Is it a safe way to approach this? Like as a marketing perspective, maybe this is an old term, but you almost want to become the mayor of your area. Like I want to know everything that's going on within inside of this town. I want to know what's happening.
I still use mayor.
Right? Yeah.
I still use that. You want to be the mayor, right? You want to be the mayor of your business. And I think, again, if you look at the locations that do really well, you can come up with the greatest digital or grassroots local store marketing plan. And I've had this happen where I had a GM who was bought in. They went to the meetings. They knew everyone in the community. Everyone in the community knew them. They were always out. They were a true brand ambassador, right? And any kind of local store marketing party, plan, campaign, initiative was successful when that individual was over that location. I could take those same plans and go to a similar unit, and the GM was not as bought in, was not the mayor, and they failed, right? And it's truly, it's about having the buy-in, which is why, again, like as a marketer, my partner is ops. If you don't have a good partnership with your operator, again, I don't care how much money you have, and I don't care how great your plan is. It's not going to be as successful as if you had that operations partner. I mean, it has to be executed. It has to be executed. And so any local store marketing plan that you come up with, you've got to have the buy-in of the people in that unit.
I love it, Kayla. And look, you dropped so much gold here. I definitely want to have you back on because I think that we could talk about this. And
I could talk about this for for a long time.
And I know you can because you're a wealth of knowledge. I think what I'd be interested on, and we'll schedule this for another time, but I'd be really interested hearing, I guess, for the guests to take away, and we don't have enough time for this, but what goes into those toolkits, right? So like what specifically? And then I'd also be curious about, because it's more selfish for me, but we've got a lot of companies, let's say that are tech or e-commerce, that are starting to ask, how can I focus on my area now? Because they've been so global focused, but now it's like we've kind of forgotten where we're at and where we're located. And I do know, where the metrics are kind of going. It's always needed, but such a profound conversation, Kayla. Talk to me a little bit about so how can folks find you? Is the easiest way to find you right now on LinkedIn? We'll share your socials down there, but if a brand wants to get in touch with you to kind of get some of this great knowledge, we can share your LinkedIn.
LinkedIn's probably the best way. I also have a website. It's commontableservices.com.
Okay, Common Tables.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get that listed below.
Yeah, so those are probably the best ways to get in contact with me. But this has been so fun.
Well, it's been great. And I'm excited to talk to you again and just to have a wealth of knowledge and just to kind of really combine, like both of us coming from the same place, but at different times, having some conversations over the last couple of weeks, getting to know one another. But, I always find that I get to learn a little bit more when I interview someone. So it's just been profound. I think I learned more about myself, even from the Bar Louie endeavor with talking to you. So I appreciate for being on. But for anyone that's out there, man, definitely check out Kayla's content. She's a wealth of knowledge on LinkedIn. We'll share that post at the bottom. We'll have her back on. If there's any brand out there that's looking for some really quick, I'm going to say that again and hold her to it, some quick local store marketing help, we're going to send her to Miss Kayla Dillon's way. So thank you so much, guys. And thanks for tuning in. Kayla, always a pleasure to chat with you.
Thanks, Shaun.